Namaste everyone. Welcome to Blended Learning Platform. Now I am going to present a lecture on production technology and processing of cashew. Coming to introduction of the crop, cashew botanically it is of Anacardium occidentale, belongs to the family Anacardiaceae, having chromosome number of 2n equal to 42. It is an export-oriented crop mainly grown for its edible nuts, often referred as a wonder nut, which is a zero cholesterol nut because of containing high amount of unsaturated fatty acids. It is also known as gold mine of wastelands because it is spread to the different parts of the country with an objective of afforestation, soil conservation, and improving of wastelands. After knowing its value, it gains commercial importance since 1920. Coming to origin and distribution, cashew is a native of Brazil. It was spread to the different parts of the world by Portuguese people with an objective of wasteland development, which I already mentioned in the previous slide. Coming to the India, it was introduced during the 16th century to the Malabar coast and subsequently to the other parts of country and other Southeast Asian countries. Coming to the top 10 cashew producing states in India, Maharashtra is the leading producer, followed by Andhra Pradesh and Odisha. Coming to the global production, Ivory Coast is the leading producer of the raw cashew nuts, followed by India and Vietnam. So coming to exports of cashew nut from India. So in India, cashew is the third largest agricultural commodity exporting to different countries. India exporting cashew nuts to 65 countries in the world. Among that, United Arab Emirates is the leading importer of the cashew nut. Coming to uses and byproducts obtained from cashew, being an anacardiaceae member, it is rich in phenol compounds, especially tannins. In that, leaves contains around 23% of the tannin. It is mostly useful in dyeing of the fishing nets, tanning, preparation of the indelible inks, varnishes, etc. Young leaves used for treating diarrhea, sore gums, etc. That's why it is also used as a tooth powder. In some countries, young tender leaves can also be used as a vegetable and also salad because they are in red in color. Older and dry leaves, they form a good mulch because having the process of delay in decomposition. When burnt also, they serve as a good manure. Coming to the bark, bark contains around 9 to 12% of the tannin. After making incision on the bark, the juice can be extracted, which can be used in preparation of the indelible marking ink. On the wounds of the bark, the gum also can be produced. This gum, which is similar to the gum arabica, which is obnoxious to the insects. Coming to the stem, in the younger stages, this fleshy stem is a source of refreshing beverage, uh, being produced in tannins, a type of varnish also produced from the fleshy stem. Coming to the wood, this reddish brown wood, which is very hard in nature, that's why it is used in manufacturing of different packing cases, house posts, fencing poles, even help in preparing of building boards also. It is of having high calorific value used in preparation of charcoal. Further, it can be used as a fuel also. Coming to the cashew apple, which is a false fruit, which is a modification of swollen peduncle or pedicel. It is very astringent in nature. That's why after dipping in salt or sugar, it can be eaten, which is having high amount of the ascorbic acid or vitamin C, which is of around 260 milligram per kg of the product, which is 5 times more than the citrus fruits. From this, we can prepare juices, syrups, canned fruit, candied fruits, pickles, jams, jellies, chutneys, etc. The famous alcoholic drink, Feni, can be prepared from the cashew apple. So these apples sometimes dried and can be used as an animal feed also. But in rural parts of the India, after removal of the dried fruit, this cashew apple left over in the field itself can be served as a manure. Coming to the cashew fruit, botanically, this is of drupaceous nut. After maturity and ripening, it will changes into the color like greenish gray in color. Weight of the single nut, it depends upon the variety and the weight ranges from 3 to 20 grams. After ripening, the shelling percentage, it ranges from 15 to 30 percentage. Coming to the cashew kernel, this is the edible after cashew apple. We are growing the cashew because of this cashew kernels only. So this cashew kernel is which is a delicious, appetizing snack, rich in texture, contains delicate flavor, having a high amount of unsaturated fatty acids, especially linoleic and oleic acid. So this kernel is widely employed in the confectionery items like cakes, chips, sweets, etc. Coming to the cashew kernel flour, the low-grade cashew kernels like cashew bits, etc., they can be made into powder to prepare the cashew kernel flour, which is rich in protein and having high digestibility. Coming to cashew kernel butter, after extraction of the oil, the residue can be prepared as a cashew kernel butter, which is a comparable to the peanut butter. Cashew kernel cake. After extraction of the oil and the butter, the residue can make it into powder to prepare the cashew kernel cake, which is used as an animal feed. Coming to cashew kernel oil, mostly the low grade cashew kernels are only used for preparation of the cashew kernel oil. By cold press of the by cold pressing of the cashew kernels, oil can be extracted. We can extract around 40% of the oil, which is also known as a Caribbean oil. This oil is comparable to the remaining edible oils like olive oil, which is very rich in unsaturated fatty acids, contains around 60% of the linoleic and oleic acid. Coming to cashew nut cell liquid, the drupaceous nut, it is a composed of exocarp, mesocarp, and endocarp. In that, mesocarp, which is a spongy in nature, comprising of sclerenchymatous tissue, this is contains of around 35% of the sticky resinous liquid known as a cashew nut shell liquid. From the mesocarp only, we can extract the cashew nut shell liquid. By approaching different environmental eco-friendly extraction of kernel, we can we can get the cashew nut shell liquid from those methods. This cashew nut shell liquid composed of two phenolic compounds, namely anacardic acid and cardole. In that cardole, which is very having the role as a protection insects and termites, especially used in the stationery to prevent attack from the silverfish. Coming to the cashew testa, while extraction of the kernel, the brown seed coat surrounding the kernel is known as a cashew testa. This is a valuable byproduct. In some industries, cashew industries, this can be used as a fuel also because of rich in tannin. It is contains around 40% of the tannin. As a complete byproduct like cashew nut shell liquid, only the tannin can be extracted from the cashew testa in a commercial way. Coming to the Anacardiaceae other members, Anacardiaceae family having more species, around 20 species are only found in South America region. In that, along with the Anacardium occidental, some of the important species I am mentioning here. In that, Anacardium giganteum, which is also known as Suriname biggest apple, which is locally important timber in South America. Coming to Anacardium sprucianum, which is having an excellent ornamental potential because it contains the silvery white leaves with the bright inflorescence. Coming to Anacardium rhinocarpus and Anacardium sprucianum, these two species, not only they are having an ornamental potential, because of having hardwood in nature, they are best useful as a rootstock purpose to the Anacardium occidental. Coming to Anacardium excelsum, this is a this crop is this species also having hardwood very hardwood in nature. That's why it can be used in a construction purpose, and also in coffee estates, this can be grown as a shade tree. Coming to Anacardium humile, which is a comparable to the Anacardium occidental, which is a shrub in nature. This species is very close to the Anacardium occidental. Like Anacardium occidental, this also having the edible hypocarbs and seeds. Left picture is the Anacardium humile. Coming to the an important species along with the Anacardium occidental, which is natively grown in Indian subcontinent, that is Semicarpus anacardium, also known as Anacardium oriental, which is known as to prepare the marking, which is also known as a marking nut. Mostly it is used in preparation of indelible marking ink. This is famous for the edible false fruit, like Anacardium occidental. So coming to the morphology, uh, cashew nut is a semi-spread tree which is grown up to height of 12 meters. Being a dicot, which is having the deep taproot system, and that's why successfully grown in a drought hardy areas. Coming to the stem which is erect in nature, canopy because of branching pattern and bushy nature, mostly it is of umbrella or conical shape. Leaves are alternate, obovate shape, and like a mango, which is also an Anacardiaceae member. In younger stage, the leaves are in reddish brown color. Later, turn to the dark green around 20 days. Coming to the branching pattern, here a cashew nut giving the dimorphic branching pattern, which contains of two types of fleshes. One is generative flower flesh, and second one is the vegetative flesh. Always is flowering a terminal in nature. So after vegetative growth, the flowering will comes. Because of dimorphic branching pattern, there are two types of branching system, branching patterns will be there. One is intensive and second one is the extensive type of branching. So always intensive shoot which terminates into the panicle. If intensive shoots contains different laterals also, the laterals further will give into the panicles only. Whereas extensive shoot, when it reaches the certain length, it rests. Normally, not like a intensive branching system, extensive shoot always leads to the vegetative shoot only. These are the intensive branches. Coming to the inflorescence, inflorescence is an indeterminate panicle that is of polygamomonoecious type. That means male and hermaphrodite flowers are seen in the same inflorescence. Inflorescence which contains around 120 to 1100 flowers. Flowers which are scented, initially they are in a cream color. After at the during wilting stage, they turns into the pink color. I already mentioned that flowers are andromonoecious. We can observe the male and the hermaphrodite flowers in the same inflorescence. So here the hermaphrodite flowers range is around 0.45 to 24.9 percentage. In both male and hermaphrodite flowers, there will be a 9 staminodes. One single fertile stamen will be there. The difference between male and hermaphrodite is that male flowers doesn't contain any female reproductive organs, whereas in hermaphrodite flowers, the stamen which is present below the stigma. Coming to the fruit, which I already mentioned that this is a true fruit that is a drupaceous nut, which is a kidney shape, kidney shape, and in that hard pericarp, which is consisting of leathery exocarp, during the maturity or ripening time, which is of grayish in color, and spongy mesocarp. From that, we can extract the cashew nut shell liquid, and a hard little endocarp, which is the kernel, which is surrounded by a brown testa. This seed, which is of, I already mentioned that this is in kidney shape, contains the two cotyledons and a small embryo. Coming to the pollination, immediately after anthesis, stigma will be receptive. Then after anthesis, the antidehiscence will be taken around 1 to 5 hours after anthesis. Pollination is mainly done by the wind, and sometimes insects also play a major role. Coming to the fruit set, which I already mentioned that 0.45 to 24.9% perfect flowers will be there. Among that, 10% among that only 85% are fertilized, and among that only 4 to 6% of the fruits only will reach to the final stage. At different stages, the fruit drop will be occurred. So to reach the maturity, it will take around 60 to 65 days. This is the growth and development of the fruit. From the fertilization to the full ripe, it will take around 65 days, 60 to 65 days. At three different stages, it is divided into early phase, mid phase, and mature phase. So the cashew seed in the early phase, that is around 3 weeks after enthesis, the inside kernel will be filled, and slowly, gradually, the walls of the kernels will start raising. In the mid phase, that is around 6 weeks after enthesis, the kernel completely fills the reniform shape, and during this stage, the cashew mesocarp of the cashew will be filled. So the cashew nut oil percentage will be more, and further the growth rate of the shell wall is reduced and the whitish kernel is increased. Coming to the mature phase, and here the shoulders of the cashew kernel started declining, and after slight shrinking, completely it is attached to the pseudocarp, and similar shrinkage also observed in the kernel. By this time, it is in the last phase, that is mature phase, 8 to 9 weeks after the anthesis, complete maturity and ripening of the nut occurs. Coming to the fruit set and fruit drop, which I already mentioned that among the perfect flowers percentage, only 85% of the fertilized, and among that only 4 to 6% only reaches to the maturity. So the low percentage of the fertilization and retention is mainly because of most of the perfect flowers are remaining unpollinated, and if it is pollinated also, failure of the pollen germination on the stigma, and different abiotic and abiotic factors like high humidity, rain during the flowering stage, and the effect of tea mosquito bug, etc., will are the main reasons for the low fruit set and also the fruit drop. The measures can be taken to overcome the fruit drop and also to increase the fruit set is that we can do the hand pollination or the hybridization process, and application of growth regulators while during the mustard stage and peanut stage increases the fruit retention. These are the different varieties released from the different research stations all over the India. There are around 12 hybrids and 25 selections are released from the different research stations present in India. Among that, in Andhra Pradesh, Bapatla, Horticulture Research Station Bapatla, they released prominent varieties like BPP4, BPP5, BPP8, and BPP9. These are the some of prominent hybrids and selections from different research stations. In that, Priyanka, which is of export variety. These are the different varieties. Recently, some of the improved varieties are released from the Directorate of Cashew Research, Puttur. That is hybrid 130. This is a selection from NRCC, cross between NRCC selection 2 and Bedasi, which is having a nature of intensive branching habit and a cluster bearing capacity. And from research station under Bidhan Chandra Krishna Vidyalaya, Jhargram, they released variety Jhargram 2. This is a selection from seedling population of H2 by 15. Cluster bearing in these are also some improved varieties having the criteria of cluster bearing, that is Vengurla 9, BPP 10, and BPP 11. So here BPP 10 and BPP 11 are released from the Horticulture Research Station Bapatla under Dr. Vaisar Horticulture University during the year 2017. Here BPP 10 is the prominent variety. Both are on an average having the flowering duration of 85 to 90 days with a cluster bearing nature, especially BPP 10. These are the varieties giving the kernel grade and shelling percentage. Here representing that W180 and W210 are the most export grade varieties. So these NRCC selections are released from the Directorate of Cashew Research. Earlier, it was named as a National Research Center on Cashew. That's why the variety names are NRCC selections. Here I want to mention about the Bhaskara. This is a short duration flowering variety, which is a very good variety which escapes the tea mosquito bug infestation during the flowering period. Coming to the soil and climatic conditions required for the cultivation of cashew, I already mentioned that cashew is a native of Brazil. So it is of having the tropical climate. So that's why it is a crop of tropics. It can be grown up to 1,000 meters above mean sea level. And it is a sun-loving tree. The most favorable temperatures are between 24 to 28. However, it is a tropical climate. But if the temperatures are beyond 40 degrees centigrade, the stigma will dry and the fruit set doesn't occur. On an average, it requires 9 hours sunshine, 9 hours of the sun rays, especially during the period from December to May, that is in flushing and fruiting season. This is optimum for the production, and also that these period there should not be any rains. So on an average rainfall of 50 to 50 centimeter required. So distinct dry period that is of around 4 to 6 months, that is from November to July, from the flushing to fruiting period, it must be there. So on an average annual rainfall of 1,000 to 2,000 mm is the ideal for the commercial cultivation. Coming to the soil conditions, mostly I already mentioned that this crop was introduced to wastelands. So it is grown in a wide variety of the soil. Mostly this crop is grown in a very poor soils. But to get the optimum production, better to grow in a sandy loam soils. And it is also performs well in well-drained soils. But hard pan and water table between the 5 and 10 meters depth only. Ideal pH range of 5.6 to 7. If more than 8 pH is there, it is not suitable for the cultivation. So, and also mention that it is very sensitive to the water logging and tolerant to the moisture stress great extent because the fruit drop will occur. So during the seed selection, we have to take into the consideration that the mother plant should have the some criteria, that is yield of nuts per tree, which should be around more than 5 kgs. Nut size, I already mentioned that 5 to 20 grams. So if it is more than 10-gram nut, it is ideal. Compact canopy there, that means it should be of more of intensive branches than compared to the extensive branches, and a high proportion of the flowering to non-flowering laterals, that means more intensive branches should be there. And the flowering phase will be, it start with the early flowering, and the short duration flowering is very necessary because to escape from the different pests and diseases. And a high bisexual flower percentage will be there, should be there, that means more number of perfect flowers should be there. And number of nuts per panicle, ideal ranges of around 5 to 10, and most of them they should reach the maturity stage without any flower and fruit drop. Coming to the propagation, I already mentioned that it can be propagated seed. That's why we took the criteria for the mother tree selection. So while doing the seed propagation, we have to make sure that bold seeds should be selected from the mother plants. These medium nuts which are sink in water, those only select, and then after soaking in water, they should be dry in sun for 2 to 3 days. And then after drying in sun, they have to soak in water for 18 to 24 hours. Then we have to sow in a poly bags. Then seeds will germinate within 7 to 10 days, and these seedlings will be ready for 2 to 3 months, within 2 to 3 months. But during while selecting in 2 to 3 months, there will be a more mortality. Then we have to wait for the 7 to 8 months. For that, we have to continue those seedlings in the same poly bag, or we have to transfer to the another poly bag as a secondary nursery. Coming to the vegetative propagation, there are different vegetative propagation methods are followed to get the same criteria from as present in the mother tree. Some of the prominent methods are air layering. We have to take the current shoot or the 1 year old shoot. In that, we have to remove the 1 centimeter bark. Then we have to rub backside of the knife to remove the cambium. Then we have to spray the growth regulators and we have to keep the medium and tie with the polythene strip. Then within 2 to 3 months, we can get the layer. Then gradually we have to separate from the mother plant. Then we have to transplant in a poly bag and further in a main field. With the air layering, the problem is that the establishment in the main field is very less. Coming to tip grafting, in the tip itself, the from mother plant directly we have to do the grafting of a tip. That is mainly 1 year old shoot. We have to select it. Then we have to do the grafting. Then veneer grafting, 1 year old stock can be taken, and on that the current growth of the pre-cured scion have to taken, and then we have to do the side grafting. Here, epicotyle and softwood grafting methods are successful and a commercial method generally used for the cashew propagation. And then I will explain in neat. Then coming to the patch budding, we have to take the single bud with the patch and do the budding process on the 1 year old rootstock. Then sprawling branches, this method is the natural regeneration occurs from the cashew plant itself. When while growing the cashew, while it very aged old, it spreads to the other parts on the soil. When these branches are spreading, when they touches the soil, they produces the roots. This is the natural process, and we cannot take into the consideration as a commercial method. Coming to the epicotyle and softwood grafting, epicotyle grafting and softwood grafting, in these two methods, the difference between these two methods is that the age of the rootstock. In the epicotyle, a very young age rootstock can be taken, that is around 7 to 15 days old seedling, whereas softwood grafting, we have to take around 1 month old rootstock for the grafting process. In both these two methods, we will take the pre-cured scion of current season growth. Then we have to do the splice grafting or wedge grafting on the selected rootstocks. Coming to the in situ grafting, mostly in situ grafting is followed in the arid regions where the water resource is low. In this process, we will directly sow the seeds in the selected pit. Then after attaining the certain age, around 8 to 9 months or 10 to 12 months, then we have to do the veneer grafting or patch budding process in the in situ method. Generally, we will follow the veneer grafting only in the in situ method. So this is the softwood grafting explanation. First, we have to behead the rootstock, which is of 30 months old. Then we have to do the wedge slicing on the beheaded rootstock. Then we have to insert the pre-cured scion. Then we have to tie with the tape, polythene strip. Then to maintain the humidity, we have to cover the rootstock with grafted rootstock with the poly bag. Then after getting the sprouts, we have to remove. Coming to the tissue culture, mainly after attaining of the explants, then only we have to do the micrografting technique. Here also the success rate of the micro propagation is very less because of more production of the phenols. Coming to season and time of the planting, mostly the planting is coincides with the monsoon season, that is in June to October months, and that is also varies from region to region. Coming to field planting, the best soft grafted material only we have to take because from the mother plants we will get the criteria with better attributes. Those only we high yielding varieties only we will select as the planting material. Then immediately we have to make the pits of size 90 centimeter cube. Then pits are filled with the topsoil and organic manure. Then at the center of the pit we have to do the planting. Generally, spacing is followed is 7.5 into 7.5 meter in the poor soils. If the fertility is increased gradually, we increase the spacing, that is around 10 meter into 10 meters. This spacing generally followed in the rich soils and also the sandy coastal areas. Then for giving the support, we have to do the staking. Coming to the high density planting, generally for the high density planting, main objective of this high density planting is that to obtain the more productivity, that means more production in a unit area. First of all, we will, with the lesser spacing, we will planting the seedlings. Gradually, we will remove it. So in generally 7.5 into 7.5 meters, we can accommodate only 177 plants per hectare. But whereas with the spacing of 8 into 4 or 4 into 4, we can accommodate around 312 to 625 plants per hectare. So when the plants attain the full growth, when they starts the bearing, after bearing gradually within 3 to 4 years, we have to remove certain plants to maintain the spacing of around 8 into 8 meters. For this high density planting, the varieties which are having short stature and the compact in nature, mainly like Vrudachalam 2, Anakkayam 1 and Dana are more suitable for high density planting. Coming to the young trees management, I already mentioned that immediately after planting, we have to do the staking for better support. And in the initial years, whatever the shoots which are coming from the rootstock, we have to remove it. Only we have to attain the maintain the growth of scion only. Then in the basins, because mostly this crop is grown in a drought and rain-fed areas, we have to make sure that in the basins mulching should be provided to prevent the soil moisture evaporation. Then we have to do irrigation in the dry months to better establishment. Coming to the manures and fertilizers application, because of its extensive root system and also for to maintain the bearing capacity continuously, we have to give the more manures and fertilizers, and it is also draws more nutrients from the soil. And to perform very well on the poor soils also without any crop fail, we have to apply the fertilizers. Generally, the recommendation of NPK is of around per plant 750 grams nitrogen, 325 gram of phosphorus, and 750 gram of K2O. But CPCRI Kasargod, they are recommending that 250 gram of nitrogen, 125 gram of each of phosphorus and potash. This should be applied in 2 split doses. Again, the application of fertilizers and manures, it varies on the season, soil status, etc. Uh, Coming to the application, how do we apply? So we have to make the deep trenches around the tree trunk at 1.5 to 2 meters away from the trunk. Then 15 to 20 centimeter deep trenches should be prepared. Then it is applied in the soil and then immediately digging or forking, and then immediately we have to give the irrigation. So when the soil fertility is low, the above mentioned fertilizers can be increased to 30%. Coming to irrigation, I already mentioned that cashew is mostly grown as a rain-fed crop only. So if the irrigation source is the problem, we can accommodate the drip. So the drip irrigation will be like per tree, we can give around 80 liters. And then from the second fortnight of the December, when it is the flowering stage, till the end of March, on an average, we have to give around 30 irrigation. So on total, we can give around 2,400 liter per tree per year. Being a grown in a drought areas, the main important practices we have to do is the soil and water conservation. So we have to prepare a trenches in between the interrows or in the basins of the tree. We have to prepare a trench to bury the coconut husk. So the trenches prepared are like 1 meter width, 0.5 meter depth, and 3.5 meter length. So generally, it is in between the interrows only. This is helps in the conservation of water, and also in the contour areas, it will retention the water without any erosion. Coming to weed control, generally in the initial years only weeding will be problem. If we grow in many cover crops, then won't be any problem. So it depends upon the weeds and intensity of their growth. Weeding generally done during the months of June, July, and September, October. We can do the manually or the chemical application also can be done. But make sure that the basins of the trees should be weed free. For that, we can provide the mulch or the growing of cover crop in the basin area. If we want to go for the chemical application, we have to spray the paraquat at 4 kg per hectare twice in a bi-monthly interval. It starts from the July. Mainly, it controls the all weeds. Coming to the training and pruning, if we are growing in a commercial way, we mainly plant the softwood grafted or any other grafting material as a planting material. So in the initial years, we have to maintain the training. Then in the future, we will get the better tree canopy. Generally followed methods are like modified leader and open center system. But initial years, we have to make sure that below 0.75 to 1 meter, there won't be any laterals. And make sure that from cyan only, we have to allow the shoots. From the stalk, we have to remove the lateral growths regularly. And pruning, which is an important practice, generally in the less spacing areas, in the high density planting systems, we have to follow the more pruning to prevent the interlocking of the branches. So through pruning and also the training, it helpful in light penetration and also helps in the production of more productive laterals, thereby enhancing the nut production. So generally, the correct time for the pruning is that August. After completion of the harvesting process, we have to do the pruning. Not only for the light penetration and branch removal, dead and diseased wood also have to be removed. Immediately after pruning, the pruned wood should be swabbed with the border paste to avoid the fungal infection. Coming to the cover cropping and intercropping, mostly it is beneficial in the inter rows to prevent the weed population and also help in soil conservation, soil and moisture conservation. Generally followed cover crops are mostly leguminous cover crops. They are Pluraria javanica and Calpogonium muconoids. They has to be sown at the rate of 7 kg per hectare. If go for the intercropping in between the inter rows to give an additional income to the farmer, because it is it will take a time for bearing around 3 to 5 years. In that 3 to 5 years, to give an extra income to the farmer, we can grow the annual or biennial crops like cowpea, pineapple, tapioca, etc. Mostly tapioca and pineapple, they are grown under Kerala conditions. In central states like Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Goa, French bean and cowpea are also profitable vegetable crops to grow as an intercrop in between cashew. Coming to the top working, initially I want to show the difference between rejuvenation and top working. Generally, rejuvenation is doing in a old senile orchards, but whereas for the top working, if we want to convert the unproductive trees to the productive one, we have to do the top working. So this generally it is followed for the unproductive cashew trees only. Mostly trees of age of 5 to 15 years old only suitable for successful of top working. More than 25-year-old trees are not at all suitable for the top working process. Then after deheading of the cashew tree, generally it is done in the first week of the May. Then subsequently we will get the sprouts. After so many sprouts, we have to retain only 2 to 3 sprouts. Then over those shoots only we have to do the budding or grafting process. Generally, they will do the side grafting or splice grafting. With this, we can get the highest grafting success rate of 85%. And then within 2 years only, we can plant start the bearing process. So this is the schematic representation of the top working process. Sometimes without any waiting for the sprouts, we can do directly on the bark itself. The prepared pre-cured scions from the mother tree can get and then do the grafting process on the beheaded trunk. Coming to the harvesting process, I already mentioned that bearing starts from the third year onwards and it will reaches the production by 10th year and it will gives the economic yield up to 24 to 25 years. So nuts which are separated from the apple and dried in the sun for 2 to 3 days and stored temporarily, then go for the processing factories. So the yield, it depends upon the variety, depends on the reason, it depends upon the age of the tree also. Then yield of the nut, it ranges from 1 to 45 kg. However, the national average yield is of around 3 kg per tree, and high yielding clones which yields up to 15 to 17 kg also. So on an average, we can get around 375 kg of the cashew nuts and 1250 kg of the cashew apple can be obtained from the 1 hectare of the plantation. Coming to the post-harvest handling, for the cashew, we cannot eat the directly the raw nuts. We have to make them roast and we have to peel them. Then only edible kernels can be obtained. But this processing is very important. So the processing definition itself is that recovery of the edible kernels from the raw nut is the processing of cashew nut. That can be mostly by manual or using of the mechanical methods. Here some are steps are there. One is moisture conditioning, then followed by roasting, then shelling, then kernel drying, then peeling of the testa, then grading and packing. These two, grading and packing, are mostly for the export purpose. And after that, grading is generally, initially we have to do the grading of the raw kernels. Because of this method, we can reduce as the output wastage. We can reduce the broken kernel percentage. So for this, initially we have to do the conditioning of the raw nuts. By this method, we maintain the moisture percentage in the nuts. So for this, we have to sprinkle the water for 24 to 48 hours to maintain the moisture percentage of around 15 to 25 percentage. Then immediately we have to do the roasting process. Here, advanced methods also there and the traditional methods also there. The traditional methods are like open pan system, sun drying. Um, Here, open pan system, they will take the cashew kernels in an open pan and they have to roast in an open pan immediately after drying the sun. Generally, this method is practiced in Thanjavur and Kanyakumari districts of Tamil Nadu. Here, nuts are kept in a shallow iron pans or earthen pots. They have to heat it on an open fire. The disadvantage is method is that over roasting and because of over burning, because of presence of cashew nut shell liquid in the nuts, it will cause the irritation to the human. Mostly this is done by the manual one. Then coming to the sun drying, so cashew nuts are has to be dried under the sun till they are broken. Mm, they have to dry in the sun for 2 to 3 days. When they lose the moisture content, they become brittle and ready for the shelling process. Generally, this method is employed in the Panuruti of Kadaluru, uh, main processing center in Tamil Nadu. They will follow the sun drying method only without following any other roasting methods. Then advanced methods are like these two, open pan and sun drying methods having some disadvantages. So later they invented the somewhat advanced roasting methods, that is drum roasting, oil bath roasting, and steam boiling. Among these three methods, steam boiling is the advanced method and which is of environmental and eco-friendly. Coming to the drum roasting, so we have to fed the cashew nuts in an inclined drum, which is of heated below. We have to give the source of heat from bottom. Uh, Drum have to be maintained at a room temperature because cashew nuts liquid is continuously oozing out from the nuts. So the roasting process, which will take around 3 to 5 nuts. Then immediately roasted nuts fell down. Then they covered with the sand to prevent the to absorb the oil on the surface of the cashew nut. Then shell becomes brittle, and from the whole kernels we have from that whole kernels can be extracted. Here there are two methods are there. One is single wall drum roasting and double wall drum roasting. From the single wall drum roasting, we have to fed from the outside cashew nuts are drawn inside. Then outside one chimney will be there, but there is no taking of the cashew nut shell liquid from the single wall drum roasting. Whereas in double wall drum roasting, from another wall of the drum, we can proclaim the cashew nut shell liquid. Coming to the oil bath roasting, here the nuts are passed for 1 to 3 minutes to the cashew nut shell liquid only. So because of cashew nut shell liquid, it has the high temperature of around 190 to 2 degrees and 200 degrees centigrade. We will use the screw or belt conveyor for passing of the cashew nut shell liquid. So here the roasting equipment consisting of one rectangular vessel. In that nuts will be there. We will pass the cashew nut shell liquid into the nuts. So then we have to embed the complete equipment in a one brick furnace. From this also very low amount of the cashew nut shell liquid can be obtained. Coming to the steam boiling, this is the advanced method which is of eco-friendly nature. But there is a saying that we cannot obtain the like roasting method, we cannot obtain the flavor and deliciousness from the kernels. But this is the environmental eco-friendly method, and also we can get the cashew nut shell liquid from this method. So here, like a rice cooker, how we are using. So raw nuts are also steam cooked with a pressure of 120 to 140 lbs pressure for about 25 to 30 minutes. Then shell oil can be extracted in later stage by crushing of these shells. Then nuts are allowed to cool for 24 hours, then taken for the shelling process. But the disadvantage, however, it is having the environmental eco-friendly, but the disadvantage is that it will take more initial investment and higher maintenance cost also. But as I mentioned that environmental friendly and CNS and cashew nut shell liquid also will be recoverable. Coming to the shelling process, this can be mostly done by the manually only, but recently mechanical methods are also taken into consideration. So here for the shelling process, light wooden mallet is used without breaking the kernel. Maximum we can get the try to care has to be taken that we can get the holes only. So output is of around 15 to 20 kg kernels in 8 hours. We can get around 90% of the whole kernels from the manual method. So as I mentioned that mechanical shelling process is also there. We can get around 14 to 22 kg of the kernels. Then after shelling process to removal of the testa, we have to do the drying process. Then we have for this we have to reduce the moisture percentage to 2 to 4%. By that we will remove the adhering test very easily. The most commonly used method is the Broma dryer method, which has the mesh trace. Here the temperature range is around 70 to 100 degrees centigrade, and the duration of heating process is around 6 to 12 hours. So recently flow dryer is also using, which is having the capacity of 250 kgs, but make sure that temperature should not be beyond the 80 degrees centigrade. So by this method, we can complete the process within 3 hours only. So this is the shelling machine, which obtained mechanical way, then tray dryer. Then coming to the peeling. So peeling from removal of the testa from the kernels. So immediately after removal from the dryer, which are very brittle in nature, very hot. So that's why we have to kept cooling for 24 to 48 hours to absorb the moisture. Then using sharp bamboo sticks, the adhering testa can be removed. The average capacity, peeling capacity per person is of around 7 to 10 kgs. Then grading and conditioning. Mostly these practices are done, grading and conditioning followed according to the Government of India under Export Act 1963. So this grading is mostly based on the counts process represented by W. W means holes. So 1 pound, that means around 450 grams. How many kernels are weighing? That is known as a W, which I mentioned earlier that W180, W210, W240 means around 180 whole kernels will weigh weight around 1 pound. So this is the peeling process, then grading, then packing. So on and around it is categorized around 26 grades are there. So they are categorized into holes, scorched holes, desert holes, white pieces, scorched pieces, desert pieces, splits, butts, small pieces. and each grade is separately packed. They are exported for the different purposes. So I already mentioned that size grading is mostly based on the 454 grams, that is 1 pound, that is as the W180, W210, W240, W280, and maximum W500. So these kernels are conditioned with inert gases to maintain the packing, and also they prevent the breakage during the transport. Mostly used are nitrogen gas, and the moisture should be maintained below the 5%. Otherwise, it leads to the fungal infection, and also the stored pests also will be attacked. So the grading, like, well, while we selecting the kernel should be of white in color, without any insect damage and without any black and brown spots. So broken and split kernels are then separated. They can be used for the different other byproducts like cashew kernel flour, cashew kernel oil, etc. Coming to package, I already mentioned that conditioning and package, we have to fill with some inert gases. So here packing, they use the one method known as Vita pack machine. So that is a vacuum packing method. Inside, to prevent the breakage and also to maintain the moisture percentage, inside is filled with the carbon dioxide gas. If it is used a carbon dioxide gas, then it is a Vita pack. Then it is a flexi packaging, means cashew kernels are infused with the nitrogen gas, because as this gas is very eco-friendly, metal-free, and easily recyclable, and occupies the less storage space while exporting. In the market, there are certain grades are there. If it is W180, that is known as a king of cashew, which are very larger in size, and because of larger kernel size, very expensive in the market. Whereas W210, this is known as a jumbo nuts. Whereas 240, W240, which is of attractive grade, and because of 240, it is in the medium grade. We can get the more amount of nuts in the W240. That is very reasonable, and it is also easily acceptable to the consumer. Then W320, which is a popular among the cashew kernels, especially in export point of view, foreigners are taking more of W320 because they get the more amount of nuts. Then W450, which is the smallest and cheapest white whole kernels. So low income consumers, this is a very popular kernels. Then last lower grade kernels are scotched holes. They are in slight brown color. Because of long roasting, the scotched holes can be obtained. Whereas butts, splits, and pieces, which are ideal for the curry bases in the cooking items, we can use. These are the different grades. So these are the different flow charts of the processing methods, which I already mentioned earlier. This is the Tamil Nadu or Panrutti method. If you see that here is the sun drying is followed. Whereas in Karnataka or Mangalore method, they will follow the mild roasting only, not the which one, not the drum roasting, mild roasting. That may be of a drum roasting only, but they won't follow the open pan method or oil bath roasting. Whereas in Kerala or Quilon method, they will follow the oil bath roasting method. If oil bath roasting, if CNSL is not available, then they will follow the drum roasting. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.